Imagine this brown line here in the middle is the semi-permeable plasma membrane of a cell. So remember, semi-permeable means some things can pass through, others cannot. This is a very important quality of the plasma membrane. So as you can see, let's focus on these little red dots here. We have a lot of these red dots on the left-hand side and none on the right-hand side. So what would naturally happen, okay, remember all of these molecules would really be moving around slightly, but what would happen is all of these little red dots would pass through that plasma membrane, the semi-permeable plasma membrane, until they've reached equilibrium. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so now these red little circles are at what we call equilibrium. So initially we had a very high concentration on this side and a low concentration over here. Now the concentration is equilibrium. Now you might be saying, well, what about all these green squares? Okay, we have a very high concentration of green squares here. There are none over here, so these would also like to pass through. But these green squares, bump, bump, too big. They can't fit through the phospholipid bilayer of the plasma membrane. So what happens? Well, let's go look. What happened to those red circles is they diffused, or diffusion, process of diffusion, they diffused through the plasma membrane. The little red circles went directly through. That's known as simple diffusion. Now, these green squares, remember, boom, don't fit through the phospholipid bilayer, so they're going to go through these transmembrane or integral proteins that form channels within the plasma membrane. So when they go through, it's still diffusion. They're still going from an area of high concentration here to an area of low concentration on the other side of the membrane, but now they're passing through with the help of another structure with those proteins. So this is known as facilitated diffusion. Something helps. Okay? And again, this will happen until equilibrium is reached. Those examples that we just looked at are both examples of passive transport. Okay? So remember we were talking about diffusion, and we looked at simple diffusion when the small nonpolar molecules went directly through the plasma membrane, and then facilitated diffusion when larger or polar molecules go through a transmembrane protein. So those are examples of diffusion. What passive transport has in common, okay, regardless if it's simple or facilitated, is that molecules are moving from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration. Okay? So we think of that as going down the concentration gradient from high to low, crossing over that plasma membrane. High to low concentration. And the other thing that this means is that no energy is required. This will happen naturally on its own. So that's passive transport.